Hi, we're here at the Guildhall Museum in Rochester to meet one of the country's favourite entertainers. But he's more than that. He's a qualified pilot, he's a marathon runner, he's a trained boxer, he's a theatre producer, he starred in West End musicals, West End plays, he's an artist, he's painting himself for thousands of pounds for charity. He's studying for a degree, a BA degree in geology, and now he's a published author. He's written a book of short stories, horror stories. The book's called Deadknobs And Doomsticks. It's published by Caffeine Nights, and the author is here with me now, Joe Pasquale.
Hello Colin, how are you, love?
I'm all right, love.
Good.
Now I want to talk to you about this laundry list of things that you do. You're not just a busy man, because you do hundreds and hundreds of live shows every year. You sound like a man that's driven. Yeah,
I think that's exactly the word. I had a bit of a transitional period in my life about 15 years ago after reading a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by somebody called Susan Jeffers. And it's an amazing book, and it just taught me not to be scared of anything. After I did I'm a Celebrity, which was nearly 14 years ago, I jumped out of a plane, hung out of a helicopter. I thought, if I can do this sort of stuff and spend 3 weeks in the jungle with Janet Street Porter, I can do anything. So I came back home. I did a parachute jump while I was out there, and I thought, I wonder if I can do that just without a camera being in my face. Have I got the bottle to do that? And I did a parachute jump. I thought, if I can jump out of a plane, I should be able to learn to fly. So that's what I'd done. I've got a pilot's licence. I thought, what else haven't I done? I've never had a fight before, so I took up boxing. As a byproduct of that, I started running, and I thought, I've never done the marathon. So when I was 50, I'd done the London Marathon. It took me 5 hours, 20 minutes, but I finished it. And I thought, what else have I done? I haven't got any exams, but doing the pilot's licence, I had to pass 6 exams, written exams. Yeah. So I thought, if I can do that, I should be able to learn still again. So I started a degree with the Open University on geoscience. I've nearly finished the BA in that now. Then I started painting. I've been painting since I was a kid, but I never really took it up. I do a bit in the act, so I took up painting. And then, as a byproduct of the Open University, I did a couple of courses on creative writing. And all this came about through reading the book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And all these things I was scared of. And I was scared of writing. I didn't know if I could, I didn't know if I should, I didn't know if anybody would want to read it. And I've always been fascinated by horror, so that was the ideal thing for me, was do something I'm scared of, and that was why I did it. I only wrote it because I was scared of doing it, and that was why.
Do you think your fascination with horror comes from being a comedian? Because standing there in front of a hostile crowd for an hour, trying to make this audience laugh, surely there's nothing more terrifying than that. No,
that's correct, but what I love about that, I love being scared. What's really weird is, millions of years ago, we were all scared. Humans were scared. They were scared of being eaten by, dinosaurs weren't about. There'd be a big alligator coming out of the swamp, or a lion, or whatever was about, a tiger. They were scared. They were always scared. They lived in fear all the time. Yeah. And they had to find their food, hunter-gatherers, all that malarkey. And now, in 2017, what are we scared of? What are we have to make films to scare us now. There is nothing out there that scares us, really, so we have to make things that scare us. We have roller coasters, we have horror films.
Well, it's interesting because you say that there are modern things that scare us, and a lot of the stories that you've got in this book of short stories, horror short stories, they do touch on modern day events and modern day things that trouble us.
Whatever subject area you want to cover, if you look through history, humans have probably done it to each other somewhere along the line. That's what's really scary. When it's seated in reality of some sort, just look at the horrendous things we've done to each other, and still not just done, but still doing in different parts of the world.
Are doing, yes.
That we don't know anything about. And whatever you write, I still don't think it's as bad as what's going on and has gone on. Politically, the things that scare us that are going on in the world. But, if you lived in, a place, I don't know, in the third world somewhere, there's fear going on all the time that we know nothing about in this country and this way of life. And I think people want to be scared. I know I still want to be scared. It makes me feel alive. When I'm jumping out of a plane, nothing makes me feel more alive than coming down from 14,000 feet, 120 miles an hour, thinking this might not open. That makes me feel alive, and I want that feeling when I'm reading something as well.
Isn't it interesting that actually, with your fascination for history, horror stories are seated in history? Mary Shelley.
Yeah.
With her Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus.
Well, look what's happening there, actually, in the real world of replacing organs all the time now. One of the stories, I said All Good Things, is about the way we take medicine in the future, you know, we could live forever. My brain won't keep up. Well, my hand won't keep up with my brain on a computer, so I have to write it longhand first and then try and decipher it, because it's just a scrawl when I write it, because if I'm trying to type it, my brain is 4 paragraphs ahead before my fingers catch up, so I have to write it longhand, then I'll read it, I'll try and read it, and then adapt it onto the computer, do it that way.
So where do you write? Can you write anywhere?
I can actually write. I can write in the bath. I can write on the toilet. I can write.
Well, there's plenty of paper.
Yeah, there's loads of paper there, but you know, it's not good paper. Pen just goes through it. You know, it's like you can't. It's like a blotter. It's no good at all.
That's the essence of a true horror story, is that it's seated in reality and not too much fantasy.
Yeah, yeah. Because most of the stuff I've done is, you know, is based in reality. There's a couple. One of the stories called Open Wide is about a dentist that uses technology to catch the person that's done something so bad. Basically, she uses her iPhone to find the person that's next to a computer, and it's what happens after that. And all of that stuff is done on a daily basis. Everybody gets stuff nicked and they can trace it now. When I was writing the stories, I didn't have any idea where any were going. I didn't have a big plan on any of them at all. Started writing, I had an idea, a bit of a germ of an idea. I think there was 1 or 2 I thought that the story was fully formed in my head, but the majority of them just had a title. There you go, right, see what happens. And most of them were a free write, which I adapted later on once I'd done a free write of 2, 3, 4, 5,000 words, however many it was. And I just let my brain go. It's like doing stand-up, really. Once you go out there, once you know what you're doing, then you can let yourself go and see what happens.
What's lovely about writing then, from your point of view, is that you don't know how the story's going to end.
No.
So you get the same frisson of pleasure that the reader gets.
When it's a mystery, it's like a mystery in my head. And sometimes I was writing it, I had no idea where it was going to go, and I was thinking, how do I end this? And then all of a sudden, bing, I had an ending and just wrote the ending. That was it, end of the story. Put that one down, start the next one.
That's terrific. And a lot of thought-provoking stories. They're not silly stories, they're thought-provoking. You cover subjects like global warming. Yeah,
that's my favourite story. It's called All Good Things, and it's set in the future, in actual fact. It's set in the next, what happens in the next 70 years of human history, really. Well, it's human future rather than history, but I've written it as in the past, if that makes sense.
Sure. 12 stories. Yeah. Each of them have got a lovely quirky title.
Yeah.
From my point of view as a writer, what comes first? Does the title come first? Oh, that's a great title, now I'll write a story about that title. Or does the title drive the narrative, or is it the other way around? I've written a story, oh, now I've got to sit here for longer than it took me to write the story to think of the damn title.
Yeah, we started off with a title. About half of them had the title I first originated with it, and then the other half, once I'd written it, I thought that title doesn't fit it now, because it had changed so much in my head from what I envisioned. Went somewhere completely different, went off at a tangent, complete different right angle, so I had to change it. So no, I don't think there's any hard and fast rules in the way I write. Literally just write it and see what happens. I quite enjoy that process of letting your brain go, and even if it's not very good, scrap it, put it in the bin. I'm not offended by it. The thing that's weird for me as well is if people don't like it, they don't like it. If they like it, they do like it. Having a background in stand-up comedy is very subjective. Some people like you, some people don't like you. So I'm used to people not liking me, I'm used to people liking me, so it's one of those things that I'm not particularly scared of people going, this is a pile of pants. It doesn't bother me. I wrote it for me, and I just wrote it because I wanted to, and because I could, and I did. And I know as well, it's very weird this, I'm very aware of my mortality. You know, I'm 56 now, and yeah, time's kicking on, isn't it? And I might not be here for long. Who knows? None of us know what's around the corner. You know, as the saying goes, don't take life too seriously, because none of us get out of it alive. Yeah. So I don't. You know, I've just enjoyed the process, and I want to get as much done. If I'm here for another 30 years, if I'm lucky, touch wood, then I'm going to get as much done in the next 30 years as I possibly can. But once I am influenced by movies as well. You know, as you know, I'd done Mastermind a couple of years ago, and my specialist subject was, I said I want to do horror films, and they said you need to tie it down to one particular genre, so I did the vampire movies from 1896, which was the first one, to present day, and I got 19 out of 19.
Yeah, 100%, I remember
100%, yeah, but then they let me down on the general knowledge, but I only got about 5 out of that. That was because John Humphreys, who was hosting it, said to me, if you don't know anything, just have a guess. You know, rather than pass. If you pass, you've definitely not got it right. And one of the questions very early on was, what's the Pope's, the current Pope's Christian name? So I guessed at Kevin, and he wet his knickers for the next 30 seconds. And so he lost me time. If I just said pass, I might have got some, but what a div.
This is a great set we're in.
Yeah.
And it's kind of apposite to one of one of really great, they're all 12 great stories,
Yeah.
but one I really liked was the Sea Monkey story.
Yeah, the Sea Monkey is one of my favourites because I gig all over the country and you pick up stories that go on in different areas. And there's a story, I don't know if it's true or not, about in the Napoleonic Wars, there was a monkey found adrift off the coast of Hartlepool, and at the time the propaganda in the country was about the French were being monkeys. You know, they spoke a different language, they were very hairy, they were little and all this sort of stuff. And the fishermen found this monkey that had just been saved, he was just clad on a piece of wood. And they thought he was a Frenchman because he had a little naval tunic on. So they gave him a court case on the beach. They actually put like a little kangaroo court there, thinking he was a spy, a French spy.
They tried the monkey.
Yeah, they actually tried the monkey. There's songs about him, there's poems about this story that goes on. Whether it was true or not, I don't know. Anyway, they found him guilty because they said he can't speak English, and they hung him on the beach. So this story is about, it's a twist on that in a modern, well, it's not even set in 1951, about a little boy, a French boy that's born in Hartlepool with a towel. And that's it. I won't give too much away, but that's what it's about.
So I know you're a history buff, you love your history. So
yeah.
The research, is that something you enjoy doing?
Yeah, very much so. There's one about a little boy that works in a crematorium in Germany, and I found this fascinating that in Germany, not everywhere in Germany, but in a lot of towns and cities out there, they're running out of space to bury people in burial grounds, so they have to rent the space for 15 years, and after 15 years, if no one's paid your rent, then they dig your bones up and they engrave in the skull, and they store your bones somewhere with all, you know, your details are engraved on the skull. And so a lot more people are getting cremated out there than buried because they don't want to be dug up. And this is a story about a little boy that works in a crematorium for that reason.
Oh, that is. Now, talking of that kind of macabre historical stuff, you were great mates with James Herbert.
Yes.
And in reading stuff that Jim's written,
yeah,
and Sean Hudson and Stephen King, do you find those kinds of story writers influential in what you do? Oh
yeah, even though you try not to be, you grow up, you know, and you know what you know from what you've read. I love reading the short stories particularly. You know, the novels are great. Some of Stephen King stuff, Salem's Lot was just a work of genius, you know, and even It, you know, it's been overtaken by the movie, but if you read the book, It is just sensational. And these books of short horror stories, as James Herbert's, you can't help but be influenced. You know, those are the things that scared me when I was a kid. Just the descriptions of the stuff that went on. The rats, remember the rats in The Lair by Jim? That sort of gear, it just stays with me 40 years later, you know, and you have to consciously keep away from that sometimes when you're writing. You go, hang about, that sounds a bit too much like James Herbert, or that sounds a bit Stephen King.
Yes.
And then once well, how do you keep away from that consciously when subconsciously you've been influenced by it so much?
And the sheer volume of material they've churned out.
Oh
in the
God,
past.
yeah.
And it's interesting because you've covered different areas. You've managed to find new angles for horror stories that Jim and Stephen and Sean don't cover.
I've also gone over huge different time zones as well. I've gone from, you know, the 16th century, you know, during the just before the Great Fire of London, moved it into the future, as I said, into 2096. I've gone into the 1950s, I've gone into the 1960s, one set in Las Vegas. There's loads of different areas and different time zones, which I think is, hopefully breaks it up a little bit so it's not the same story. When you look at some short stories, they're all a little bit similar, hopefully, because of these time zones and different places, different countries, they're all completely different.
The trouble with short stories, of course, is that it gobbles up so many ideas. It's the next book. Now you've got the taste. You're now a creature of the night. You've got the taste for writing at night.
Yeah.
Another book of short stories?
I've got another 15 short stories planned. I've already got them planned already, knowing roughly where I'm going. Yeah. One or two of them are completely, you know, formalised in my head already. One or two of them are completely formulated in my head already, and I can't wait to start writing again.
What about a novel?
I'm thinking about a novel. I've got a great idea for a novel, which I don't want to give away, but yeah, I have. That scares me though. So the fact that I'm scared of it means I'm going to do it.
Yeah, of course. How terrifying then, speaking of horror, how terrifying was that walk to that famous leather chair with that music impending doom sounding in your ears? Yeah,
it is quite scary, but once again, because I enjoy that scary stuff, you know, I enjoy being scared, I enjoy the fear. Once again, it's through that book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, and it teaches you to embrace the fear, You know, don't be scared of it. If you're scared of it, go through it. Go through that fear. You're not scared of it anymore. That makes you know you're alive. When you're doing something you're scared of, sitting there with your feet up, eating a box of chocolates, watching loose women, doesn't make you feel alive, right? Go and do something. Do something that makes you scared. You know you're alive then. But horror is just something that fascinates me, always has since I was a kid. I remember being about 11 years old and the first time I went to the London Dungeon. I cacked myself in there. Oh, it was petrifying, but I still love it and still go there. Even if you go to the Tower of London, that's a petrifying place itself there.
Yeah.
Tower of London is so scary in there. It really is. When you think, whatever we write, I tell you what, this is interesting, whatever we write, whatever we come up with, isn't as scary as what we've done to people in the past, though, particularly this country.
Yes.
The torture stuff that went on in this country is incredible.
I guess there's nothing more frightening than human nature.
It's not, no. No, no, no.
Good luck with this book.
Thank you.
12 terrific short stories.
Yeah.
It's called Deadknobs And Doomsticks. It's published by Caffeine Nights, and I read it, and I've got to say, it's essential reading. Miss it at your peril. Thank you, Joe.
No, thank you. Miss it at your peril. That's good.
It's good, isn't it?
I like it.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
I like it.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Miss it at your peril.
Yeah. I like
Peril,
it.
you see.
Peril's a great word.
I like peril.
Yes, so do I.
Well done. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you.
God bless
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for yours.